A cry for help echoed across the construction site. For one impossible second, every machine seemed to fall silent. The crane stopped turning. The drills died against the concrete. Even the men shouting measurements from the upper floors froze where they stood. Then someone screamed, "The east platform is coming down." More than 30 workers were trapped beneath a suspended steel frame, 6 stories above the ground. The cables holding it had twisted into each other, and one of the anchor points was tearing free from the concrete wall. Dust poured from the bolts like sand through an hourglass. At the center of the chaos stood Marcus Reed, a welder who had been fired from that same site less than 48 hours earlier. His old supervisor was on his knees beside him, blood running down one side of his face. "Please," the supervisor said. "My son is up there." Marcus looked toward the failing platform. He could see the workers pressed against the guardrails, too frightened to move. He could see the steel frame tilting farther with every groan of the damaged anchor. Behind him, police officers shouted for everyone to clear the area. The project owner stood in the mud in a spotless gray suit, staring at Marcus as if the man he had dismissed without a hearing was now the only person left in the world. Marcus picked up a welding mask from the ground. "Shut down power to the east tower," he said. The site manager swallowed. "The backup system won't respond." "Then cut the main line. That will kill the emergency lifts." Marcus pulled the mask over his face. "If you don't cut it," he said, "that platform kills everyone." To understand why a fired welder was the only man willing to climb toward a collapsing structure, you have to go back 3 days, to a Monday morning when the city was still celebrating the project as the future of downtown. The Halcyon Tower was supposed to become the tallest building in the state. Its glass walls would reflect the river. Its rooftop garden would overlook the old factories where thousands of men and women had once earned their living. Newspapers called it a symbol of renewal. Politicians called it proof that the city had returned. The workers simply called it the tower. Marcus Reed arrived every morning before sunrise. He drove an old blue pickup with a dented rear bumper and a heater that worked only when the truck turned left. He parked near the equipment gate, carried a metal lunchbox his daughter had decorated with yellow stars, and greeted the night security guard by name. Marcus was 43 years old, broad-shouldered, quiet, and known for 2 things. The first was his welding. He could study a joint once and tell whether it would hold. He understood metal the way some people understood music. He knew when heat had traveled too far, when a seam had been rushed, when a beam had been stressed before installation. Younger workers often watched him without realizing they were learning. The second thing Marcus was known for was walking away from arguments. Some mistook that for weakness. His supervisor, Dennis Cole, mistook it for permission. Dennis had worked in construction for 20 years, but had spent the last 5 trying to prove he no longer belonged among ordinary laborers. He wore polished boots that never seemed to collect dust and carried a tablet instead of a tape measure. He had learned the language of executives, efficiency, optics, milestones, liability, and used those words like walls between himself and the men below him. On Monday morning, Dennis stood near the East Tower as Marcus inspected a series of newly installed support plates. "What are you doing?" Dennis asked. Marcus kept his flashlight trained on the underside of the joint, checking the welds. "They were checked Friday." "Not by me." Dennis gave a short laugh. "And the city survives." 2 junior welders nearby looked down at their tools. Marcus wiped soot from the metal. "There's undercutting along this edge." Dennis glanced at the joint without bending closer. "It passed inspection." "It shouldn't have." "Then maybe your eyes are better than the engineers." Marcus ignored the insult. "This plate is carrying more load than the original plan allowed." Dennis stepped closer. "You're a welder, Marcus." "Yes." "Not an engineer." "No." "Then weld what you're told to weld." Marcus stood slowly. The men around them had gone quiet. Dennis enjoyed that. He liked public obedience because it made him feel powerful. Marcus pointed to the edge of the support plate. "The joint is already showing heat stress." Dennis's face tightened. "Do you enjoy making everyone wait?" "No, because every time I look for you, you're questioning a drawing, rechecking somebody else's work, or teaching apprentices who weren't assigned to you." Marcus switched off the flashlight. "I'm trying to keep the building standing." A few workers looked away to hide their reactions. Dennis's cheeks darkened. "The building will stand," he said, "whether you're on this crew or not." Marcus placed his flashlight back inside his vest. Then we agree on the important part. Dennis stared at him, searching for defiance. Marcus offered none. That frustrated him more. At lunch, Marcus sat on an overturned bucket beside the southern fence. His friend Luis Mendoza joined him with 2 cups of coffee. "You know he's going to come after you," Luis said. Marcus opened his lunchbox. Inside were 2 sandwiches, an apple, and a folded note written in purple marker. "Good luck today, Dad. Don't forget the science fair." Marcus smiled and placed the note inside his pocket. Luis noticed. "Ellie, science fair tonight. What did she build?" "A water filter. She's 11. 12 next month." Luis handed him a coffee. "My son built a volcano at 12. It exploded in the kitchen and stained the ceiling red." Marcus took the cup. "Maybe your son was testing structural durability. My wife tested my structural durability after that." Marcus laughed softly. Across the site, Dennis stood beneath a heated shelter with 2 project executives. One of them was Grant Holloway, the owner of Holloway Development and the public face of the tower. Grant was 57, silver-haired, and always photographed from angles that made him look taller. His father had built warehouses. Grant had built hotels, offices, and luxury apartments. He spoke often about his grandfather, who had worked in a steel mill, though no one on the site had ever seen Grant speak to a steelworker for more than 2 minutes. Beside him stood Vanessa Pike, the project's chief operations officer. Vanessa was precise, calm, and feared in every department. She did not shout. She simply asked questions until someone else lost confidence in their own answer. Dennis nodded toward Marcus. Vanessa followed his gaze. "That the welder you mentioned?" "He's slowing production," Dennis said. Grant sipped from a paper cup. "How?" "Constant objections. Re-inspections. He undermines authority in front of the crew." "Is his work good?" Vanessa asked. Dennis hesitated. "Technically." Grant checked his watch. "We're behind schedule. I don't care who has hurt feelings. Fix it." Dennis heard only the last 2 words. That evening, Marcus left the site with dried dust in his hair and a burn mark on one sleeve. He drove across town to Roosevelt Middle School and entered the gymnasium 15 minutes before the science fair ended. Rows of cardboard displays filled the room. Parents clustered around tables while students demonstrated circuits, solar ovens, and small machines. At the far wall, Ellie Reed stood alone behind a blue poster titled "Clean Water from Simple Materials." Her face brightened the moment she saw him. "You came." Marcus looked at the clock. "I said I would." "You're late." "I said I would come." "I didn't say I'd be impressive." Ellie laughed and ran around the table to hug him. She had her mother's dark eyes and Marcus's habit of studying people before speaking. Her project used gravel, sand, charcoal, and cotton to filter cloudy water through a plastic bottle. Marcus examined the setup seriously. What happens if the cotton shifts? It could make a channel and let dirty water pass through. "So what did you do?" "I compressed it and added a second layer." Marcus nodded. "Redundancy. My teacher said that word too." "Your teacher sounds very smart." "She gave me second place." Marcus looked at the red ribbon. "Second, Dad. I'm only asking who made this terrible mistake." Ellie rolled her eyes. "A girl made a working wind turbine." Marcus considered that. Acceptable. They packed the display into the truck and drove home to a narrow brick house on Maple Street. Marcus had bought it with his wife, Rachel, 14 years earlier. After Rachel died from an illness that arrived quietly and moved quickly, every room became both a shelter and a memory. Her yellow raincoat still hung at the back of the hall closet. Marcus had never moved it. His mother, Evelyn, lived in the apartment above the garage. She had arthritis in both hands and a sharp opinion about everything from politics to overcooked rice. When Marcus and Ellie arrived, Evelyn was trying to carry a laundry basket down the stairs. Marcus took it from her without speaking. "I was managing," she said. "You were negotiating." "With what?" "Gravity." Evelyn frowned. "Gravity needs to mind its business." After dinner, Marcus repaired a neighbor's broken heater. The neighbor, Mr. Bell, tried to pay him. Marcus refused. "You worked 10 hours today," Mr. Bell said. 11. "That makes this worse." Marcus tightened the last screw. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of skill. Marcus switched the heater on. Warm air rolled into the room. Mr. Bell looked at him. "You can't keep fixing the whole neighborhood for free." "I'm not. You fixed my porch, Donna's sink, and the church ramp. The church gave me pie. That is not a business model." Marcus smiled. "Depends on the pie." The next morning, the temperature dropped below freezing. At the tower, workers gathered near propane heaters while frost clung to the steel. Marcus was assigned to the East Tower again. He climbed to the 6th level with Luis and 2 apprentices. From there, the city looked pale and distant. Cars moved below like small insects. Wind pushed between the open floors. Marcus checked the support plates from Monday. One had been covered with fresh paint. He ran his glove across it. The paint was still soft. "Who painted this?" he asked. One apprentice shrugged. "Night crew, maybe." Marcus scraped the surface with a chipping hammer. Gray paint peeled away, revealing a thin black line running from the weld into the plate. A crack. Luis leaned closer. "That wasn't there yesterday. It was starting." "How bad?" Marcus studied the direction of the fracture. "Bad enough." He photographed the crack and radioed Dennis. No answer. He radioed again. Dennis responded after a long pause. "What?" "We have a fracture on east support plate E16. Mark it and continue. It needs to be unloaded. We have a crane inspection at 10. We can't unload the platform. The crack is spreading toward the anchor." Dennis's voice became colder. "Did you hear me?" "Yes." "Then mark it and continue." Marcus looked at Luis. Luis shook his head slowly. Marcus pressed the radio button. "I'm shutting down this section. You do that and you're written up." "I understand. You don't have authority. I have responsibility." Dennis arrived 20 minutes later, breathing hard from the climb and already angry. The workers had been moved off the platform. Equipment sat idle. A delivery truck waited below with steel beams that could not be lifted into place. Dennis pushed through the group. "Who told everyone to stop?" "I did," Marcus said. Dennis stared at the exposed crack. "You shut down an entire section for that. That plate is under stress. Everything here is under stress." The anchor layout was changed. Dennis looked at the plate. Marcus pointed to 2 bolt holes filled with weld metal. The original holes didn't align, so someone shifted the bracket. Dennis's expression flickered. Only for a second. But Marcus saw it. "You knew," Marcus said. Dennis stepped close enough that their helmets nearly touched. "You need to be very careful." "Who approved the change?" "Engineering." "Show me." Dennis lowered his voice. "You think because people respect you, you can run this site?" "No, you think I don't know what you say behind my back. I don't talk about you behind your back. That's supposed to make you better than me?" Marcus looked at the crack again. "This isn't about you." To Dennis, everything was about him. By noon, Vanessa Pike had called a meeting in the temporary office trailer. Marcus sat across from Dennis. Grant Holloway stood beside the window, reading messages on his phone. Vanessa placed a printed photograph of the cracked plate on the table. "You stopped work without authorization," she said. "Yes." "Causing a 4-hour delay." "Yes." "Costing approximately $80,000. Marcus glanced at Dennis. "Did you inspect the plate?" Vanessa's gaze sharpened. "I am asking the questions." Marcus nodded. "Were you instructed to mark the defect and continue?" "Yes." "And you refused?" "Yes." Grant looked up from his phone. "Why?" "Because someone could die." The trailer became quiet. Dennis leaned back. There was no immediate danger. Marcus turned to Vanessa. The bracket was moved from its engineered position. 2 original holes were filled. The new anchor point is too close to the edge of the concrete. The plate is cracking under lateral load. Vanessa looked at Dennis. Dennis shook his head. "He's exaggerating." "Then bring in the engineer," Marcus said. Grant sighed. "We already have inspectors. Bring in the structural engineer who approved the change." Dennis interrupted. "There was no change." Marcus looked at him. That answer settled something. Vanessa folded her hands. "Marcus, this is not the first complaint about your conduct." "What complaints?" "Failure to follow chain of command. Disrupting workflow. Challenging supervisors in front of employees." "I challenged unsafe work." "You are not employed to interpret company policy." "No. I'm employed to weld steel." "Then why is that so difficult?" Marcus sat still. He thought about the men outside waiting in the cold. He thought about Ellie's water filter and the second layer of cotton she added in case the first shifted. He thought about how safety was usually invisible until the moment it was gone. "It isn't difficult," he said. "But I won't weld over a mistake and pretend it disappeared." Grant placed his phone in his pocket. "I'm tired of this," he said. "Dennis, is the structure safe?" Dennis answered immediately. "Yes." "Vanessa?" "The site has passed every required inspection." Grant looked at Marcus, then returned to work. Marcus did not move. Grant's face hardened. Was I unclear? No good. I need that instruction in writing. Dennis smiled without humor. Vanessa's expression cooled. Grant stared at Marcus as if he had finally become an inconvenience too large to ignore. You're done, he said. Marcus took a slow breath. Vanessa opened a folder. Your employment is terminated. Effective immediately for insubordination and unauthorized shutdown of operations. Luis, who had been waiting outside, heard the words through the thin trailer wall. So did 3 apprentices. Within minutes, the news spread across the entire site. Marcus removed his access badge and placed it on the table. Dennis expected him to argue. He wanted Marcus to argue. He wanted anger, threats, excuses, something that would make the firing feel justified. Marcus only stood. Vanessa pushed a termination form toward him. Sign here. He read it. The document stated that he had stopped work without evidence of imminent danger. Marcus took a pen and crossed out the sentence. Beneath it, he wrote, structural crack discovered at altered east support bracket. Shutdown initiated to protect workers pending engineering review. Then he signed his name. Dennis scoffed. That doesn't change anything. Marcus placed the pen down. No, he picked up his helmet and lunchbox. As he walked through the site, men stopped working. No one clapped. No one spoke. They simply watched. Marcus passed the east tower, where fresh gray paint had already been rolled over the cracked plate. At the gate, Luis caught up to him. I'm coming with you, Luis said. No, they fired you for doing your job. You have a family. So do you. That's why you stay. Luis looked toward the office trailer. They'll do it again. Marcus opened his truck door. Then watch carefully. What are you going to do? Marcus looked across the site. Above them, the tower rose into the gray sky, unfinished and exposed. I'm going home. That afternoon, Ellie found him in the garage repairing a wooden chair. She stood in the doorway with her backpack still on. Why are you home? Marcus continued sanding the chair leg. Finished early. You never finish early. He stopped. Ellie stepped closer. Did something happen? Marcus placed the sandpaper on the workbench. I lost my job. Her face changed. Why? I stopped work because I thought something was unsafe. Were you wrong? I don't think so. Then why did they fire you? Because being right and being believed are not always the same thing. Ellie stared at the floor. Are we going to lose the house? No, he said it quickly enough that she looked up. Marcus softened his voice. We're okay. Grandma's medicine costs a lot. I know. And my school trip. We're okay, Ellie. She nodded, but worry had already entered the room. Marcus opened his arms. She stepped into them. That night, after Ellie went to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with bills arranged in small stacks. Mortgage, utilities, medication, insurance. He opened his bank account on an old laptop and calculated how many months they could manage. Not many. Evelyn came downstairs in her robe and placed a cup of tea beside him. You told her not to worry, she said. She shouldn't. Neither should you. Marcus leaned back. Evelyn sat across from him. Your father came home once after a foreman fired him for refusing to enter a collapsed trench. Marcus had heard the story, but he let her continue. He sat at this same table. Different house, same face you have now. He thought being calm meant no one could see he was scared. I'm not scared. You're a terrible liar. Marcus looked at the bills. Evelyn touched the edge of one envelope with her stiff fingers. Did you do the right thing? Yes. Then don't let the wrong people convince you that it was foolish. Across town, Dennis Cole remained at the tower long after most workers had left. He stood alone in the office trailer, watching security footage from the east tower. The camera angle showed Marcus discovering the crack, clearing the platform, and pointing toward the altered bracket. Dennis paused the recording. He opened a drawer and removed a flash drive. For 6 months, Dennis had been under pressure to accelerate the schedule. Grant wanted the tower enclosed before winter. Vanessa had tied management bonuses to weekly milestones. Every delay triggered meetings, reports, and threats. When the east support brackets arrived with mismatched holes, Dennis had faced a choice. Send them back and lose 9 days. Or move them. A subcontractor had warned him that the revised anchor position reduced the safety margin. Dennis had forwarded the warning to Vanessa. Her reply had been brief. Resolve in. Field. No schedule impact. Dennis had interpreted those 4 words the way ambitious men often interpret convenient silence. He told the crew to modify the brackets. He approved the filled holes. He instructed an inspector to review only the accessible side of the joint. And when the first hairline crack appeared, he ordered it painted. Now Marcus had documented everything. Dennis inserted the flash drive and copied the security footage. Then he deleted the original file from the site system. What he did not know was that the tower's cameras automatically uploaded compressed backups to the security company every midnight. The following day, Marcus visited the union office and filed a safety complaint. The representative listened, took notes, and examined the photographs. "These are serious," she said. "How soon can someone inspect?" "It depends on the city. People are working on that platform now. I'll mark it urgent." Marcus leaned forward. "Urgent means what?" "It means I call today." "An inspection?" "I can't promise." Marcus nodded, though the answer did not satisfy him. He emailed the photographs to the city safety department, the project engineer, and Holloway Development. He received one automated response and 2 delivery confirmations. No one called. At the site, Dennis gathered the workers before shift. "Some of you have heard rumors," he said. "The east structure has been examined and cleared." Luis raised his hand. Dennis stared at him. "This isn't school." "Who examined it?" "The appropriate people." "Which people?" Dennis walked toward him. "You want to join your friend?" Luis held his ground. "I want to know if it's safe." Dennis looked across the crew. "Anyone unwilling to work may leave." No one moved. Not because they trusted him. Because rent was due. Children needed food. Cars needed repairs. Parents needed medicine. Ordinary people often continued beneath dangerous structures because danger was invisible, while bills were not. Work resumed. By Thursday morning, wind gusts reached 40 miles per hour. The Weather Service issued an advisory, but the schedule called for the installation of a massive steel truss on the east side. Once secured, it would connect 2 sections of the building and allow the next stage to begin. Luis climbed to the 6th floor with Dennis's 19-year-old son, Caleb. Caleb had started at the site only 2 weeks earlier. He wanted to prove he had earned the job rather than received it. Unlike his father, he listened when older workers spoke. As they prepared the rigging, Caleb noticed Luis staring at the support bracket. "That where Marcus found the crack?" he asked. Luis nodded. "It looks fine. It's painted." Caleb crouched near the plate. "My dad said the engineer cleared it." "Did he show you the report?" Caleb looked up. Before he could answer, Dennis's voice came through the radio. "East crew, crane is moving. Clear the landing zone." The truss rose from the ground. It weighed nearly 18 tons. Wind pushed against it like a giant hand. The crane operator adjusted the angle while signalmen guided it toward the platform. The first warning was not a sound. It was dust. A thin stream fell from the concrete beside the altered anchor. Luis saw it. "Stop the lift," he shouted into the radio. The crane operator held position. Dennis responded. "What's the problem?" "The anchor is moving. It's surface dust. It's pulling out." Dennis looked up from the ground. The platform appeared stable. "Continue the lift." Luis grabbed Caleb's harness and pulled him back. The truss shifted closer. The east platform dipped half an inch. Then came the sound. A deep metallic snap traveled through the structure. Workers froze. One of the filled bolt holes split open. The support plate tore away from the concrete on one side, and the suspended truss swung hard against the platform. The impact threw 3 men off their feet. A cable whipped across the deck, striking Dennis in the face as he rushed beneath the tower. The platform tilted. Tools, bolts, and steel clamps slid toward the edge. Someone screamed. A cry for help echoed across the construction site. Marcus heard it through his phone. He was standing in the parking lot of a small fabrication shop, waiting for a job interview, when Luis called. The connection broke after 6 seconds. But 6 seconds were enough. Marcus dropped the phone into his pocket and ran to his truck. At the tower, emergency alarms blared. The damaged platform remained partially attached to the building, held by 2 cables and 1 compromised bracket. The 18-ton truss hung from the crane, tangled in secondary lines. 32 workers were trapped on the 6th floor because the impact had twisted the temporary stair frame. Caleb lay near the outer rail with a broken leg. Dennis stood below, shouting his son's name until a falling bolt struck his helmet. Grant and Vanessa arrived from a meeting in the neighboring sales center. "What happened?" Grant demanded. No one answered. The crane operator struggled to stabilize the truss, but the wind pushed it back and forth. Every swing transferred force into the damaged platform. A city fire captain studied the structure through binoculars. We need the engineering plans, she said. Vanessa opened a tablet. They're on the project server. Which support system is this? East temporary staging. Was it modified? Vanessa hesitated. Dennis looked at her. The fire captain noticed. Was it modified? Before anyone answered, Marcus's blue pickup crashed through the outer gate and stopped in the mud. A police officer raised a hand. You can't enter. Marcus stepped out. I know that platform. Dennis saw him and ran forward. Blood covered one side of his face. My son is up there. Marcus looked past him toward the 6th floor. Where's the engineer? 20 minutes away. They don't have 20 minutes. Dennis grabbed Marcus's jacket. Please. Marcus removed his hands gently. Tell me everything. Dennis's mouth opened, but no words came. Marcus stared at him. You moved the brackets. Dennis nodded. How far? 6 inches. Anchor depth? 4.5. Marcus's face tightened. Minimum was 7. I know. What else? The rear plate wasn't replaced. Marcus looked toward the platform again. That meant the load was not being distributed across the concrete wall. The remaining anchor was carrying forces it had never been designed to hold. Why is the power still on? Marcus asked. The site manager answered. Emergency lifts. The live line runs. Beside the east braces. If the platform drops, it tears the conduit open. The fire captain stepped forward. Who are you? Marcus Reed. Welder. He was terminated, Vanessa said. Marcus looked at her. For the first time, Vanessa seemed ashamed of her own voice. The captain pointed upward. Can the platform be stabilized? Yes, Marcus said. But not from the ground. Grant came closer. What do you need? Marcus ignored the question and studied the tower. The standard access route was destroyed. The emergency lift could reach the 5th floor, but the final section required crossing an exposed beam. The damaged truss had to be cut free from the platform, then lowered by the crane. After that, the remaining bracket needed a temporary brace welded to the main structural column. It was dangerous work even on a calm day. In the wind, with unstable steel and frightened workers above, it was nearly impossible. Marcus turned to the fire captain. Cut power to the east tower. The site manager objected. The backup system won't respond. Then cut the main line. That kills the lifts. Marcus picked up a welding mask from the ground. If you don't cut it, that platform kills everyone. The captain made the decision. Cut power. The site went dark. The emergency lift stopped at the 5th floor. Marcus entered with 2 firefighters and Luis, who had managed to descend through a maintenance ladder before the stair frame twisted shut. You're staying here, Marcus told Luis. Luis put on a harness. No, you have a family. So do you. Marcus looked at him. Luis tightened his helmet. You told me to watch carefully. The lift rose. At the 5th floor, the doors opened onto darkness and wind. They clipped their harnesses to a lifeline and crossed a narrow beam toward the east side. Below them, hundreds of workers and emergency responders appeared as small figures in the mud. The damaged platform groaned above. Marcus climbed first. When he reached the 6th floor, the trapped workers began shouting. Stay where you are, he called. Do not crowd the inside rail. Caleb saw him. Mr. Reed. Marcus crawled toward him. You picked a bad day to impress your father. Caleb tried to smile, but pain broke through his face. Marcus checked the broken leg. Can you feel your toes? Yes. Good. The firefighters secured Caleb to a rescue board. Another metallic crack echoed through the platform. The remaining workers panicked. Listen to me, Marcus shouted. This platform is still connected. We are going to reduce the load and move you out one at a time. Nobody runs. Nobody decides they're special. The familiar steadiness in his voice changed the air. Men who had been shouting became quiet. Marcus crawled toward the damaged bracket. The crack had spread almost completely through the plate. Concrete around the anchor had crushed into powder. The hanging truss pulled at the platform with every gust. He radioed the crane operator. Can you take full tension on the truss? I can try. Don't lift. Just hold. The cable tightened. The platform shifted again. Marcus inspected the tangled secondary lines. One line had wrapped around the guardrail. Unless it was cut, the crane could not move the truss away. He connected his portable cutter. Luis looked at the remaining bracket. When that line goes, the load changes. I know. How much? We'll find out. Marcus positioned the torch. Below, Dennis watched through binoculars. Grant stood beside him, silent. Vanessa had opened the project server. She found the engineering email Dennis had received months earlier. Bracket relocation not approved. Revised position creates unacceptable edge distance and potential concrete breakout under dynamic load. Below the warning was her own reply. Resolve in field. No schedule impact. She read it twice. Then she sat down in the mud. The fire captain approached. I need the plans. Vanessa handed her the tablet. I knew, she said. The captain looked at her. I didn't know exactly what they did, but I knew there was a problem. You can explain that later. Vanessa looked toward the trapped workers. Will they survive? That depends on the people up there. Marcus ignited the torch. Sparks scattered into the wind. The cable resisted, glowing orange before snapping apart. The truss swung away from the platform. For half a second, nothing happened. Then, the damaged bracket tore completely free. The platform dropped 6 inches. Men screamed. The remaining support cables caught the load, but one began unraveling strand by strand. Marcus slammed against the floor. Luis grabbed his harness and pulled him away from the edge. We lost the bracket. Luis shouted. I noticed. The firefighters began moving workers toward the maintenance beam. One at a time, they clipped each man to the lifeline and guided him across to the 5th floor. Caleb went first on the rescue board. Marcus crawled to the main column. We need a brace, he said. Luis looked around. From what? Marcus pointed to a section of guardrail. They cut it free. The rail was not designed to hold structural load, but it could serve as a temporary diagonal brace if welded between the platform frame and the main column. Marcus cleaned the contact points with a grinder. The platform shook beneath them. Luis held the rail in position. You get one chance, he said. Marcus lowered the mask. I usually ask for 2. He struck the arc. White light flashed against the steel. The wind tried to tear the shielding gas away, contaminating the weld. Marcus adjusted the angle and moved slowly, building the joint layer by layer. Below, every face turned upward. The unraveling support cable snapped one strand at a time. Marcus finished the first side. Move, a firefighter shouted. 20 workers had crossed. 12 remained. Marcus switched to the second joint. The brace began taking load. The weld metal glowed red. Then a gust struck the tower. The suspended platform twisted. Luis lost his footing. His harness caught him, but his weight pulled the guardrail brace out of alignment before the weld had cooled. A crack appeared along the edge of the joint. Marcus saw it. Luis, climb back. I can't reach the deck. Marcus anchored his own harness and crawled to the edge. Luis hung over open air, one hand gripping the lifeline. The platform shifted again. Marcus reached down. Their gloves touched, but slipped. Again, Marcus said. Luis swung toward him. Marcus caught his wrist. Pain tore through Marcus's shoulder as he pulled. Another worker crawled forward and grabbed Luis's jacket. Together they dragged him onto the deck. The temporary brace creaked. The weld crack widened. Marcus looked at the remaining men. Everybody off now. They moved faster, still controlled, but no longer one at a time. The firefighters guided them across the beam. 5 remained. Then 3. Then only Marcus and Luis. The brace tore loose on one side. Go, Marcus shouted. Luis clipped onto the crossing line. What about you? I'll hold the platform steady. With what? Marcus grabbed a manual tension lever connected to the secondary cable. You cannot hold that by hand. I don't need to hold it long. Luis stared at him. Marcus shouted. Go home to your family. Luis crossed. Marcus stood alone on the platform. The steel beneath his boots tilted toward the open air. He pulled the tension lever down, forcing the platform frame closer to the column. The temporary brace pressed back into place. Luis reached the 5th floor. Marcus now. Marcus locked the lever. For 1 second it held. He clipped onto the lifeline and stepped onto the beam. Behind him, the lever slipped. The platform dropped. The temporary brace ripped free. Marcus jumped. His hands caught the beam as the platform fell away beneath him. The entire east section crashed against the side of the tower, scattering steel and concrete into the empty exclusion zone below. Marcus hung 5 stories above the ground. Luis crawled out onto the beam. Give me your hand. Marcus looked down. The broken platform swung beneath him, smashing against the building. His right shoulder had been injured, pulling Luis back. He could not lift that arm. Luis reached farther. Marcus swung his left arm upward. Luis caught it. The firefighters secured a second rope around Marcus's harness and pulled him onto the beam. When he reached the 5th floor, he collapsed against the column. Below, the site erupted. Workers cheered, cried, and embraced one another. Paramedics rushed toward the lift as emergency power was restored. Dennis reached Caleb first. His son was conscious, pale, and shaking. Dennis knelt beside the stretcher. "I'm sorry," he said. Caleb looked at him through tears. "You knew?" Dennis could not answer. Caleb turned his face away. Marcus descended several minutes later with his shoulder strapped against his chest. The moment his boots touched the ground, the site fell silent. He saw Grant Holloway standing near the emergency vehicles. Vanessa stood beside 2 police officers. Dennis remained on his knees in the mud. Grant walked toward Marcus. No camera captured what happened next, though hundreds of people saw it. The most powerful developer in the city removed his expensive coat, placed it on the ground, and knelt. "I fired you," he said. Marcus looked down at him. Grant's voice broke. "You warned us." Marcus said nothing. "You tried to protect these men, and I treated you like an obstacle." Around them, workers watched. Grant lowered his head. "I am sorry." Marcus looked toward the ambulances, where paramedics treated the injured. He saw Caleb gripping the rail of his stretcher. He saw Luis embracing his wife and children near the gate. He saw men calling home to say they were alive. Then Marcus looked back at Grant. "Stand up," he said. Grant lifted his head. Apologies belong face to face. Grant rose slowly. Police investigators sealed the site that afternoon. The city suspended construction. The state opened a criminal investigation. The security company delivered the automatic camera backups, including footage Dennis had tried to delete. Emails revealed months of pressure, ignored warnings, falsified checks, and deliberate concealment. Dennis was charged with reckless endangerment and evidence tampering. Vanessa resigned and cooperated with investigators. She admitted that her message had encouraged Dennis to solve the problem without delay, even though she knew engineering approval was missing. Grant testified before the city council. He did not blame subordinates. "The failure began with a culture I created," he said. "We rewarded speed. We punished hesitation. We spoke about safety in public and treated it as an inconvenience in private." The council chamber was full. Marcus watched from the back row, wearing a shoulder brace beneath his jacket. Grant continued, "A building does not fail only when steel breaks. It begins failing when people become afraid to tell the truth." The tower remained closed for 6 months. During that time, every altered bracket was removed. Independent engineers inspected the entire structure. New reporting rules allowed any worker to stop operations without supervisor approval when a serious hazard was suspected. Grant asked Marcus to join the new safety committee. Marcus refused the executive title. "I'm a welder," he said. Grant offered him control over field safety instead. Marcus considered it. "I want apprentices included." "Done." "I want every safety report visible to the crew." "Done." "No production bonus can override a shutdown." Grant nodded. "Done." "And Luis chooses his own job title." Grant almost smiled. "I'm afraid of what he'll choose." Luis chose Senior Field Training Coordinator because, as he explained, the longer title looked better on a coffee mug. Dennis waited for trial in a small county facility. Most people expected Marcus never to speak to him again. But 3 weeks after the accident, Marcus drove there. Dennis entered the visitation room in a gray uniform. Without his polished boots and radio, he looked smaller. He sat behind a glass. "Why are you here?" he asked through the phone. Marcus held the receiver with his left hand. His right shoulder was still healing. "Caleb asked me." Dennis looked down. "He won't speak to me. He's angry. He should be." Marcus waited. Dennis pressed his forehead against the glass. "I kept telling myself I was protecting the project," he said. "Then I told myself I was protecting my job. Then I was protecting the lie. Every time I crossed a line, the next one looked smaller." Marcus listened. "I hated you," Dennis continued. "You walked around like you didn't need anyone's approval. That wasn't true. You never looked afraid. I was afraid all the time." Dennis looked up. Marcus said, "Courage doesn't mean fear is gone. It means fear doesn't get to make the decision." Dennis closed his eyes. "Can Caleb forgive me? That's his decision. Can you?" Marcus looked at the man who had humiliated him, fired him, hidden evidence, and placed dozens of lives in danger. "Forgiveness isn't pretending." "Nothing happened," Marcus said. "You still have to answer for what you did." Dennis nodded. "But I don't want your life to end with the worst thing you've done." Dennis began to cry. Marcus stayed until visiting hours ended. The following spring, work resumed on the Halcyon Tower. On the first morning, every worker gathered near the east side of the building. The repaired structure stood above them, reinforced and inspected. A new steel plate had been installed near the entrance. It carried no company slogan, only a sentence chosen by the crew. Every voice has the right to stop the work. Grant stood beside Marcus beneath the morning sun. He wore a hard hat and work boots covered in real mud. "Are you ready?" he asked. Marcus looked across the crowd. Luis stood with the apprentices. Caleb, walking with only a slight limp, had returned as a safety trainee. Vanessa was not there, but she had sent a letter accepting responsibility and offering to fund the injured workers' medical care. Marcus adjusted the strap of his helmet. Almost. Ellie stepped through the gate carrying his old metal lunchbox, still decorated with yellow stars. "You forgot this," she said. Marcus took it from her. "You came all this way. You came to my science fair. That was different. You were late." He smiled. "Fair point." Ellie looked up at the tower. "Is it safe now?" Marcus followed her gaze. "No building is safe because someone says it is," he said. "It's safe when people keep checking, keep speaking, and keep listening." She nodded as if storing the words for later. The morning bell rang. Workers moved toward their stations. Marcus placed his helmet on his head and walked beside Grant through the gate. Not ahead of him, not behind him, beside him. Above the entrance, sunlight struck the new steel plate. For a moment, the letters shone across the construction site, while hundreds of ordinary workers returned to the tower they had nearly died building.